Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So as most of you guys probably already know by now is that there are sadly a lot of states that are starting to end their unemployment earlier than we had anticipated. Now the great news is that there are a lot of lawsuits that are going on. Of course, we already talked all about that in one of the previous videos, which I'll put at the very end screen, called Incredibly Great News. But the story is that even beyond this is that there are actually a lot of states right now that are trying to come out in order to do their own specific state stimulus check. For example, in California, I do know is that they were doing their $600 stimulus check, and they actually recently just expanded eligibility, and by recently we're talking about over the last couple of days, so it is actually still very, very fresh. So if you happen to be there, there is a chance, if you were to Google up Golden State stimulus, that you may now be able to see an extra $600 come sometime soon. Of course, most of that information will probably be on their site. But even beyond this is that there are actually a lot of states that are trying to create or have actually already created. So by already created, we're talking about actually approved programs right now to do some kind of back to work bonus to essentially encourage people to go back to work, some of which actually add up to about $2,000, which I personally think is pretty incredible. Actually, there are some states that are ending unemployment early, and they are trying to do this as a way to maybe make up for it. You guys can maybe comment if you prefer to stay on unemployment or try to get that check, because it kind of goes both ways, because if you go back to work, you can also collect income from your actual job, so it kind of depends how you look at it. But there are also, interestingly, a lot of states that are actually set to continue on to the unemployment, but will be doing these back to work bonus stimulus checks as a way to kind of give you guys an option to maybe encourage you guys to go back, but to kind of provide it for you, really just to give you guys a little bit of a choice. So we're going to talk all about that in today's video, because there's a lot of stuff to cover. And again, keep in mind is that most of these are approved programs that are going on right now, and they're actually still relatively early. So I think actually this video is hopefully perfect for that. And there are some that are also proposals, but we're going to end with that. So with that being said, let's get this video started. But before we begin, as always, remember to smash the like button, consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly really anything, or any information that you have. So with that being said, now let's get this video started. So when it comes to a lot of these programs, again, as mentioned, is that there are some states that will be ending unemployment, but will be doing these bonuses to kind of maybe make up for it. And there are also a lot of states that are giving you guys the option, so they will be continuing unemployment, but giving you guys this as maybe an incentive to go back. So the first state that we're going to talk about is really going to be Arizona. Now in Arizona, what's going on is that they're essentially doing a $1,000/$2,000 stimulus back to work bonus for people that go back to either a part-time or a full-time job. So essentially $1,000 for part-time and $2,000 for full-time. In New Hampshire, they are doing something similar, but they are cutting it in half. So to basically give people $500 to go back to part-time work, and then $1,000 to go back to full-time work. And then I know in Oklahoma and Montana, they are doing something where they will be giving you guys a $1,200 in order to go back to full-time work. Now, in many of these states is that there are only some of these states have already started to open up their applications. These are all approved programs, by the way. Everything that we just mentioned is a program that's actually going on. And some of them, even though they are happening, they haven't actually fully opened up applications yet. So for example, I believe in Oklahoma, supposedly, they're hoping to open up applications so you can start to apply for this if you guys are interested, starting around, I believe it's going to be around next week. So essentially around the second week of July, they're hoping to potentially now start the program. Now, I know in another state is going to be Kentucky. So Kentucky is doing a $1,500 bonus in order to return back to work by July 30th. So they do actually have a little bit of a cutoff that's going on. Oh, and also maybe important to mention is that a lot of these states, they're doing their program, but they're also doing it on a limited basis. So in other words, they might potentially be doing it only to like the first 20,000 people or something like that. But because it is still relatively early in the program, I do believe that if you are interested in doing any of these, there's still a lot of spots in order to fill up. But in Kentucky right now is that they are giving a $1,500 check if you return back to work by July 30th. So essentially by the end of this month, which is crazy because today's the first day and we're already now entering into the second half of this year. I believe what's pretty much going on in Kentucky right now is that the really great news is that they are not only doing this back to work stimulus check, but they're also planning to keep their unemployment program as well. And I think the logic behind this is because they're trying to incentivize people to go back to work, but at the same time they also know is that because there are actually people that genuinely really need it as a lifeline. I think the logic is that there was some like data I think that came out that supposedly by keeping the unemployment program going, they actually were able to pump about $34 million inside of the economy. We talked a little bit about that in the previous video. I believe it's called Why Unemployment Should Continue, and also put that at the end screen because it talks a little bit about how in a lot of ways by ending unemployment, it's actually hurting both sides, actually the businesses and then obviously the people, because in a lot of ways when you take away a lot of the programs and relief, it also means that people spend less money, and being able to spend money is something that is actually meant to stimulate and try to recover on the economic level from everything that's going on. I believe is that in order to do this is that they are using the state funds that came from the third stimulus package to do it, and they're hoping to open applications. So I don't believe applications have opened yet, but they're hoping to do it, I believe, the start of next month. And I believe that Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate minority leader right now, it's kind of crazy how fast time flies. I think the story is that Mitch McConnell is trying to fight it, and he's actually against a lot of these programs, as in he wants to both end unemployment and the actual back to work bonus. But the great news I think is that it looks like, with the assumption that everything goes smoothly because next month has not happened yet, it's hopefully going to be happening. Now, beyond Kentucky is that there are a lot of states now, and now this part is talking about proposals that are going on. So the rest of this is talking about things that have not necessarily been approved yet, but they are things that are on the table. Is that I believe in North Carolina and in Massachusetts, they're hoping to try to do some kind of back to work bonus as well. They just haven't released details specifically about it. And I do know another state that is thinking about doing something is actually New York. I believe New York is trying to do a potential $1,200 as a back to work bonus, and I believe that New York is actually planning to hopefully at this time continue to keep their unemployment until the beginning of September, because that is the the date that was supposedly given with the part of the third stimulus package. So thankfully at this time they are keeping it, but I think what's really nice is that they're actually giving the option so that you guys can choose whether you want to continue on the unemployment or just take the stimulus check and then go back to work, especially if maybe you do actually end up finding a job that's very high paying. Maybe this will incentivize you greater. I do know, actually interestingly, also in Illinois, I believe right now is Governor Pritzker, who is there. He is thinking about doing a back to work bonus. The really great news is that if you happen to be there is that I believe is that he's preaching to continue the unemployment program. So very similar to New York is, except the difference is that he hasn't really released details about what that back to work bonus is. But I believe that the story is that they're hoping to do something similar to New York in terms of basically creating a back to work bonus program to kind of give you guys the option of whether or not you want to continue on unemployment or go back to work. Now, if you are not from any of the previous states that was just mentioned, I think one of the great news to share is that there are actually even more states that are projected to likely come out with their programs. We just don't have as much information about it yet. Maybe consider subscribing if you guys are brand new here in order to get updates if they do actually eventually come out. But one thing that does apply to actually almost every single state is that there are actually a lot of companies right now, at least supposedly according to a lot of articles, that are actually creating their own specific back to work bonus if you take a job at that specific company. So think a little bit like a hiring bonus, where if you were to find and get a job at certain companies, if you were to take the job, they actually will essentially give you an extra amount of money, almost like a welcome package, in order to go back to work at that specific company. And this is something that is going on much more specific to the company. So by that logic, it's actually going on in all 50 states. It just kind of depends on the specific company you're looking for work in. But beyond this is, I think the only one maybe important thing to notice is that in many of these programs, even though they are to incentivize people to go back to work, there may be actually specific requirements even beyond that. So for example, some of these might involve something where you guys have to go back to work, but you have to have a job that is within a certain income gap. It could be maybe you have to be making over a certain dollar per hour, maybe you have to be making over a certain annual salary of some kind. You may have to be required to work a certain number of hours before you can get it. Some of them might be requiring you to essentially have to work there for a month, and then you can get the back to work bonus. But that's actually a lot more state specific, so it's probably something that we're gonna have to make another video. But if you're looking for information about that, I highly recommend just simply googling up your state and then just back to work bonus, because you're more likely to find information there. But beyond that that's pretty much what I really just wanted to cover in today's update, because hopefully it'll give some people maybe something to potentially look forward to, especially if you guys do end up going back to work, or if you guys are currently looking for work and hopefully are able to find work in something in the near future. But essentially, if you guys found it insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button if you guys haven't done so. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well. Happy early Independence Day if you guys are watching this on release date, because we're only just a couple of days away from that. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.